3 bone-chilling true roommate horror tales that expose unexplained nightmares and haunting secrets. In the heart of any college campus lies countless stories, but some are far darker than the rest. Imagine sharing your personal space with someone who appears normal yet harbors a chilling past. The whispers of the halls are laced with the tales of these eerie encounters, and tonight, we dive into the deepest fears of roommates who found themselves living nightmares. Take Sarah, for instance. She thought nothing of moving into a shared dorm room with a girl named Lisa. Everything seemed perfect at first: a friendly smile, shared laughter, and pizza nights. But as the days turned into weeks, odd things started to unfold. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Late at night, she often heard her roommate mumbling softly in the dark, words that danced just beyond comprehension. One night, a loud crash jolted Sarah awake. She shot up, adrenaline pumping. There, under her bed, was Lisa staring blankly at the wall, whispering names of people Sarah had never heard. It sent shivers down her spine. What secrets was Lisa hiding? Then there's Mark and his roommate Dave. They seemed like the perfect pair: same interests, same humor. But one stormy night, while raindrops hammered the windows, Mark heard a strange noise that twisted his stomach into knots. It was a soft, thrumming sound, like a heartbeat echoing in the thunder. He turned to see Dave staring at something unseen, a grin frozen on his face. When Mark asked what he was looking at, Dave only replied, "She's here." The chill in the air became suffocating and Mark felt his heart race. Who was she? And why did it feel like the walls were closing in? Finally, there's Emma, who moved in with a girl named Jess, who had a reputation for being a loner. Emma noticed the odd flicker of lights in their apartment. It was as if shadows played tricks on her. One afternoon, she pieced together the rumors that Jess's last roommate had vanished without a trace. Every time Emma glanced at Jess, she couldn't shake the sense that something sinister lurked beneath the surface. One evening, when Emma returned home late, she found Jess standing in the dim kitchen, staring into the fridge. When Emma asked what was wrong, Jess merely chuckled and replied, "Just waiting for the next one." Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As these stories unfold, you can't help but wonder, can you trust the person you sleep next to? What lurking shadows hide behind friendly faces? As the darkness envelopes, the lines between trust and fear blur, leaving behind only one question: what will happen when the true horrors are finally revealed? In the dead of night, when the campus was wrapped in silence, Emma did her best to push away the dread that coated her thoughts like thick fog. Jess had always been a puzzle she couldn't quite solve, but tonight, the air in their apartment felt thicker, more suffocating. She glanced at the kitchen, half expecting to find Jess still hovering over that fridge, her eyes glazed and distant. But Jess was gone. Emma shook her head, trying to clear her racing thoughts. She needed to focus. This could just be her overactive imagination. Or the countless horror movies she binged during the semester. But deep down, Emma felt the intense prickle of fear crawling up her spine. She decided to make herself a cup of tea to calm her nerves. She shuffled into the kitchen, the shadows stretching out menacingly as the flickering light overhead seemed to mock her anxiety. As she filled a kettle with water, thoughts of Jess's last words echoed in her mind, "Just waiting for the next one." What did that mean? Who was the next one? Her heart raced, and she stumbled back, her pulse hammering in her ears. Just then, her phone buzzed on the counter, breaking the eerie silence. A text from an unknown number lit up the screen, and Emma's heart skipped. The message read, you should leave before it's too late. Panic shot through her veins. Who was sending this? Her teeth clenched as she thought of Jess, desperately trying to convince herself it was a prank. Yet, a creeping thought clawed at her sanity: what if it wasn't he? Gathering her courage, Emma decided to confront Jess. She called out for her roommate, her voice trembling. No answer. The emptiness of the apartment echoed back, amplifying her growing anxiety. Just as she was about to turn back to her phone, the front door creaked open slowly. Emma felt a rush of relief mixed with dread. There was Jess, standing in the doorway, drenched from the rain, her hair plastered against her forehead, eyes gleaming with something strange, something that felt like malice. "Where were you?" Emma asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Jess stepped into the apartment, her smile unsettling and wide. "I was out. Looking for something." "What?" Emma could barely whisper, an instinct urging her to step back. "Someone," Jess replied, her gaze sweeping through the dimly lit room. "It's important to find the right one." Emma felt like the walls were closing in around her. There was something wrong, something terrifying in the way Jess spoke, the way her eyes glinted in the darkness. Slowly, Emma backed away. "What do you mean?" Jess took a step forward, and Emma froze. "You know how many times I've had to replace a roommate, right? They just keep disappearing," she said, each word dripping with a madness that slithered down Emma's spine. Then, in that moment, a dreadful thought struck her. She remembered the whispers of the previous roommate, the one who vanished without a trace. Emma turned to leave, but Jess blocked her path, now inches away. The smile stretched even wider, revealing teeth that gleamed too sharply in the dim light. "Don't you want to stay? We could have so much fun together, until the next one," Jess whispered, her voice sweet as honey but laced with an undeniable threat. Just like that, the air shifted with an oppressive weight. Emma's head spun, and she was caught in a nightmare that spiraled beyond comprehension. The panic surged again, and her heart raced as she prepared to fight for her freedom. What would Emma do next? Would she escape, or was she destined to join the ranks of the lost? With all the courage she could muster, Emma prepared for a confrontation unlike anything she had ever faced, and outside, the storm began to howl. Emma's heart pounded in her chest. The way Jess stood there so calm and yet radiating an energy so chaotic sent her mind spiraling into a whirlpool of thoughts. What had her roommate done? She couldn't comprehend it, yet she felt it chilling her bones. As Jess stepped forward, Emma's instinct screamed at her to run, but the threat loomed too close, paralyzing her with fear. "What's wrong with you, Jess?" Emma gasped, her voice trembling. "This isn't funny." Jess tilted her head slightly, and the eerie smile never faded. "You don't understand. No one does. It's not just a game." Her voice turned suddenly grave. "There are rules you must follow or you too will just disappear, like the others." The mention of the others washed over Emma like ice water. She contemplated the rumors she'd heard whispered in the hallways, the way former roommates had left and never returned. She felt trapped, cornered in a nightmare she couldn't wake from. "I want to leave," Emma asserted, summoning every ounce of bravery she could muster. "Oh, but you can't," Jess replied, her voice lilting with something sinister. "You have to stay here with me." As if on cue, the storm outside raged harder, wind rattling the windows and thunder shaking the walls, amplifying the sense of madness that lurked within the apartment. It was as if the world outside echoed the turmoil inside. Emma's feet felt rooted to the ground, but desperation clawed at her, pushing her to break free. "I'm not doing this. I'm calling the police," Emma shouted, pulling her phone from her pocket. But Jess lunged forward, her hand quick like lightning, snatching it from Emma's grasp. "Do you really think they'll help you?" she hissed, the darkness in her voice sending shivers down Emma's spine. The amusement faded from Jess's expression, replaced by a cold seriousness that chilled the air. "Just like the others, I promise they won't believe you. Fear crashed over Emma, wave after wave, and a bitter realization washed over her. Jess wasn't just disturbed, she was dangerous. That chase of adrenaline was all-consuming, and she felt a pulse of survival ignite within her. Back off! Emma shouted, her voice breaking but filled with newfound resolve. She took a step back, darting toward the exit behind her. Jess advanced, her movements eerily fluid, as if she was savoring this dark game. Emma's mind raced. She scanned the room for an escape. The back door? No, too far. The windows? Locked. The front door was her only chance, but Jess was like a ravenous predator closing in on its prey. Suddenly, a terrible realization struck Emma. I can't let her take me. Drawing a deep breath, she prepared to charge. Just as she lunged, the lights flickered, and in that split second of darkness, the world shifted. Emma slammed the door behind her and sprinted down the hall. Heart racing, legs pumping, she could hear Jess's frantic footsteps trailing behind her, laughter haunting her like a ghost. Don't you see, Emma? You can't escape what you are now. Jess's voice echoed, sounding unusually far away yet close, like a twisted playground for nightmares. Emma burst into the stairwell, the dim light flickering sporadically. If she could just make it to the ground floor, but with each step down, the sense of dread thickened, gripping her throat. The final door loomed ahead, shining with the promise of freedom. She reached for the handle just as a voice boomed in her head. What if it was too late? With one last push, Emma lunged through the door, casting one desperate glance behind her. Jess stood silhouetted against the dim light, her expression an unsettling mask of triumph. Run all you want. You can't escape. She shouted, her laughter echoing through the shadows with a haunting familiarity. What awaited Emma outside the life she longed for, or yet another trap? As she pulled the door closed behind her, heart racing and breath heavy, she knew this was only the beginning. What horrors lurked in the shadows of the night, waiting patiently for their turn? The street felt alien as Emma stumbled outside, her heart still hammering against her ribcage. Rain drenched her in icy tendrils, but the pain in her chest was even worse. She ran, not daring to look back. The wind howled around her, echoing the chaos that had erupted inside her apartment. She tore down the sidewalk, her mind racing. What did Jess mean by the others? Fear gripped her, squeezing the air from her lungs. There had to be a way out of this nightmare. Emma didn't even know where she was going, she just needed distance between her and that predatory smile. Her phone, she had to retrieve it. Spotting a light flickering at the end of the block, hope ignited. It was a convenience store, still open amidst the storm. She dashed inside, the fragile bell tinkling above her like a warning. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flooding her with an unsettling brightness. Are you okay? The cashier asked, his brow furrowing. Emma met his gaze, her eyes wide with genuine fear. I need help. My roommate, she's gone crazy. I think something's wrong with her, she stammered, voice trembling as the wild memories of Jess enveloped her like fog. The cashier's face turned from concern to disbelief. Why don't you call the police? He said gently, but his eyes darted to the door, and that when she realized the door was still swinging slightly open. With each gust of wind, the howling laughter of Jess seemed to creep inside the store. Heart pounding, Emma fished her wallet out, fingers fumbling until she found her other phone. It was cracked but still worked. Relief washed over her as she dialed 911, but as she waited for a response, a chill crawled down her spine. What if this was all a ruse? Ma'am, what's your emergency? Came the operator's voice, but before Emma could respond, the store's door burst open. The wind slammed it against the wall, cutting short her words. And there she was, Jess, standing in the shadows, water dripping from her hair in a grotesque semblance of normalcy. Emma, she sing-songed, her voice smoothly treacherous. I told you, you can't escape. Emma's breath quickened. Stay away from me. She shouted, clutching the phone tighter, all emotions boiling into terror. The cashier stepped between them, hands raised. "Ma'am, maybe you should leave," he said to Jess, a hint of fear breaking through his professionalism. "You're frightening her." Jess giggled, the sound sending icy shivers through Emma's limbs. It was too calm, too collected. "Oh, don't worry about her, she's just having a rough time. We're friends." "Friends?" Emma said, pressing her back to the counter, and resisting the urge to scream. "No, you're not my friend. You've done terrible things." Jess tilted her head and laughed, low and mocking, devoid of warmth. Rain dripped off her fingers like she was a specter rising from the storm. "Things will never be the same, Emma. You can't go back," she said with cruel delight. The operator's voice crackled through Emma's phone, and Jess shifted, her eyes narrowing. In a heartbeat, the atmosphere changed, the suspense transforming into something frigid and suffocating. "It's too late for all that," Jess hissed, and before Emma could react, she lunged forward. Time slowed. Emma's instincts kicked in as she dodged, the phone slipping from her grip, crashing to the floor. Eyes wide, she watched as everything spiraled out of control. The cashier reached for Jess, but suddenly darkness enveloped the entire store, screams erupted. Emma felt the panic clawing her insides. How was this happening? She had to fight, to flee, till the lights flickered back on. Or did they? Jess stood still, a smirk curling her lips as if nothing had happened. "Let us have some real fun tonight, shall we?" she whispered as the panic in Emma's heart propelled her towards a door at the other end of the store. What happened to the world she once knew? And more importantly, did Jess possess the key to unraveling it all? As Emma burst through the door and into the storm, every instinct screamed that the true horror was just beginning. The rain pounded against Emma's skin like tiny fists, urging her to move faster. She didn't know where to run, just that every step needed to take her farther from Jess. With ragged breaths, she weaved through the streets, her mind echoing with Jess's mocking laughter. What was wrong with her? Had she really gone off the deep end? Emma's stomach churned at the thought. Jess had always been the quirky one, the fun one. Now she felt like a stranger, a predator lurking just out of sight. Lights flickered through the storm as Emma spotted an alley on her left. Without a second thought, she ducked in, feeling the adrenaline pump through her veins. Shadows enveloped her, wrapping her like a cloak as she pressed her back against the damp bricks. Heart racing, she listened intently, expecting the soft patter of footsteps behind her. The world outside felt surreal. The rain, the wind, they all felt as if they were part of a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. If only she could catch her breath, if only she could find someone who believed her. But trust had crumbled, just like everything else. She fished out her cracked phone, hoping against hope that the call had gone through. No signal, just the spinning wheel of despair. Emma slumped down, hugging her knees. Panic seeped in again, brewing like a storm in her chest. What if Jess wasn't herself anymore? What if something had taken over? She buried her head in her arms, shutting out the world, whispering a silent prayer to the universe. "Please just let me wake up." A sudden noise shattered the stillness. A scraping sound echoed through the alley, prickling her skin with fear. Emma held her breath, eyes darting toward the darkness. "Emma? Are you there?" The voice was unexpected. It was Sarah, her neighbor, someone she had shared laughter and secrets with. Relief bubbled in her throat, but it was short-lived. What if Jess was with her? "Go away!" Emma cried out, her voice trembling. "This isn't safe. Emma, come on. I saw you run. What's happening?" Sarah urged. Emma could hear the muffled footsteps now, the familiar scent of damp earth mingling with the acrid smell of fear. The shadows inched nearer, a dark silhouette looming against the alley's entrance. "Stay back!" Emma yelled. She's not my roommate anymore." "Who?" Jess? What are you talking about? Sarah's brow furrowed, confusion mixing with concern. Then the figure stepped into view. Jess, soaked and menacing, grinned wider than ever. Did she tell you what I've become? What I can do? Emma's body went rigid. Where was the humor, the warmth? This Jess was a monster, a nightmare come to life. Run! Get away from her, Sarah! She shouted. But Sarah stood frozen, eyes darting from Emma to Jess. Emma, maybe we should just talk. No. Emma cried. There's nothing to talk about. You don't understand. Then, Jess laughed again, a sound that sent chills racing down Emma's spine. She's right, you know. You have no idea what's waiting for you. None of you do. The shadows around Jess twisted, curling and writhing as if they were alive. Emma glanced at Sarah, desperately trying to communicate with her eyes. They had to escape. In a sudden burst of adrenaline, Emma pushed off from the wall, electricity sparking in her veins. She lunged past Sarah, aiming for the alleyway's exit. Jess, however, reached out a hand like ice, grasping for her arm. As Jess's fingers grazed her skin, a jolt shook Emma. She felt it, fear trickling into her, invading her thoughts, feeding on her vulnerabilities. It was like being engulfed by darkness. Emma ripped her arm away just in time. No! She screamed, tears hot on her cheeks. But as she emerged into the street, the rain battered down harder. Each drop felt like a reminder that something was very wrong. Somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered, "What if this was just the beginning?" Panting, she glanced back at the alley. Jess stood there, her laughter echoing through the storm, sinister and sweet. You can't run forever, Emma. I'll always find you. With a shiver, Emma realized Jess held more than her past memories. She was entwined with something dark, something ancient, specters that lived in shadows. Emma spun on her heel, racing into the heart of the storm, but lingering behind her was the feeling that escape was merely an illusion. How far could she run from the darkness creeping just behind her? What awaited her ahead? Every beat of her heart screamed that she needed to act, to understand what was truly happening before it swallowed her entirely. Emma's feet pounded against the slick pavement, each step echoing her racing heart. The night around her was alive, the rain morphing the streets into a mirror of chaotic reflections. She focused ahead, desperate to escape the nightmare that had claimed Jess. The city felt transformed, her familiar haunts had turned into dark maze-like passages, filled with whispers on the wind. Emma forced herself to remember the route to Sarah's apartment. It was the only safe place she could think of, a refuge from Jess's grasp, but something was wrong. Every face she passed seemed to shift in the light, a fleeting glimpse of horror drifting past her vision. The lingering taste of fear lingered on her tongue, and she shook her head, trying to clear the overwhelming dread. Finally, she spotted Sarah's building, the comforting glow of its windows beckoning her. Suddenly, Emma crashed through the entrance, breathless and soaked. She glanced back over her shoulder, half expecting Jess to appear at any moment, her twisted smile in solid relief against the glow of street lamps. "Sarah!" Emma shouted, racing up the stairs. She needed to warn her friend, to make her understand the reality of what they were facing. Heart pounding, she burst into Sarah's apartment, but the room seemed empty. The soft hum of the refrigerator provided a frightening calm. "Sarah!" She called again, frantic. Silence responded, wrapping around her like a thick fog. A strong gust of wind swept through the cracked window, stirring the curtains. Emma bolted into the small living room, scanning for her friend. A subtle chill swept through her, sending a shiver down her spine. Then she spotted a half-empty glass on the table, the ice cubes long melted. An echo, a sign that Sarah had been there. Had she gone out? Or was she being lured into a trap just like Emma? Panic clawed at her throat. As she turned to leave, the door creaked open. Emma's breath caught as her heart raced anew. It was Sarah, face pale and eyes wide, almost unrecognizable. "Emma, you shouldn't be here," she gasped, darting in and shutting the door behind her, urgency lining her voice. "Did Jess follow you?" Emma asked, stepping closer, desperation clawing through her veins. Sarah shook her head violently. "No. But I saw something." Her voice trembled, eyes flickering to the window. "I think she's taking people, changing them. You need to listen to me." Emma's heart sank. "Changing them? What do you mean?" "People around us, they look normal, but it's like they're not. I went to the store, I saw someone I knew. But when I talked to her, it was different. It was like she wasn't even there." Sarah's hands shook as she spoke, anxiety pouring off her like a summer storm. Emma stepped back, reality crashing down around her. What had happened to Jess? What was she now? "We need to do something. We can't just sit here." "Agreed, but be careful," Sarah warned, glancing nervously at the door. "I don't feel safe. Something is watching us." Before Emma could register her confusion, the lights flickered and dimmed. Shadows darted across the walls, elongating into grotesque shapes. Emma felt her breath hitch, fingers tightening around each other in fear. Suddenly, the door rattled, sending both women spinning around. They exchanged terrified looks, knowing all too well what or who might be waiting on the other side. "I think someone's here," Emma whispered, her voice barely above a breath. The rattling grew louder as the shadows thickened. The handle turned slowly, and the door inched open, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness. Jess stood there, drenched and transformed, her eyes glowing with an eerie light. "You can't hide from me," she taunted, her smile twisted with something sinister. "Run!" Emma screamed, but before she could move, Jess locked her gaze onto Sarah. "No!" Emma cried out as Jess stepped forward, shadows curling around her like serpents. It was happening too fast. Emma knew they needed to fight back, but how could they fight an enemy who thrived on their fear? With a surge of adrenaline, Emma pushed Sarah toward the small kitchen and grabbed a knife from the countertop, its cool steel grounding her. As she swung the blade, she hoped desperately for just a moment of clarity amid the chaos, but Jess laughed, her voice echoing, a haunting melody through the storm. "You think that's going to save you?" The towering figure loomed closer, stepping past the threshold as darkness poured in, engulfing the room. Emma felt that deep, sickening twist in her gut. This was at the moment of truths, the battle for her very soul. Jess wasn't just a person anymore, she was the embodiment of something far worse. "What will you do now, Emma?" Jess taunted, the shadows swirling, promising an eternity of nightmares. In that instant, Emma understood they were caught in a dark web, and the only way to break free was to confront what they feared the most. It was a choice: face the storm or embrace the shadows. "Fight!" Emma shouted, mustering every ounce of courage she had left. Would it be enough to pull Sarah from the brink? Would they conquer the darkness closing in around them? As the line between friend and monster blurred, Emma braced for the chaos. But at that moment, a terrifying howl outside interrupted Jess's madness. The shadows trembled. Something else was out there. What other horrors awaited them on this stormy night? Emma could feel her resolve hardening, but the danger was far from over. Would they escape the nightmare, or was this just the beginning of something far worse? Emma's heart raced as Jess advanced, shadows swirling around her like a living cloak. The empty kitchen felt even smaller now, trapping them in a claustrophobic dance of fear and desperation. She gripped the knife tighter, its familiar weight grounding her chaotic thoughts. "Stay back!" Emma shouted, though she could hear the tremor in her voice. But Jess just laughed, a sound that wrapped around Emma like a chill wind. "You think you can fight me?" She stepped forward, her form shifting, eyes glowing brighter. "I am so much more than you can imagine. I've seen behind the veil, and it's beautiful." "Beautiful? You're insane." Sarah's voice broke through, a spark of defiance. "This isn't you, Jess." Jess faltered for a heartbeat, the glow in her eyes dimming momentarily before her anguish twisted into rage. "You don't understand. I can show you how to escape all of this, how to be free." "Free?" Emma scoffed, a spiteful laugh escaping her lips. "You mean free like the others? Like the people outside?" The very idea sent a shiver down her spine. She could easily picture those familiar faces twisted beyond recognition, but the haunting darkness behind them wasn't just the prowling night. Sarah stepped slightly in front of Emma, her face steely with resolve. "We want to go with you. We're not afraid of you, Jess." A smile spread across Jess's lips, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, but you should be afraid. You have no idea what I've become. And you, Sarah," she trailed off, that sinister smile now directed at Emma. "I can feel the fear bubbling beneath your surface. You'd betray your friend to save yourself, wouldn't you?" "Shut up," Emma shouted, oblivious to the truth behind the words. She raised the knife defensively, her instinct screaming that this was an enemy she could no longer recognize. Jess took another step forward, the shadows coiling around her like vipers. "You see, all it takes is a little touch. I can show you power beyond your wildest dreams. You don't have to be scared anymore." Her voice dripped honey, shaking the foundations of Emma's rage. How many whispers had she heard like this before? The promise of power, of control. The irony stung bitter. With her heart pounding in her ears, Emma seized the moment. "This isn't you, Jess. Fight this. We can save you." But Jess only tilted her head, a predatory glint in her eyes. "You don't get it. I don't want to be saved. I want to be free." The shadows danced wildly about her, creating grotesque forms that teased at her sanity. Emma felt a horrible coldness seep into her bones, threatening to swallow her whole. She had to act. "Sarah, get out of the way," Emma shouted, her voice raw with fear. With no other choice, she lunged forward, knife raised. Jess's laughter was thunderous, echoing through the small apartment. "You think that will work? You don't have what it takes." Just as she swung, a sudden roar ripped through the night, wild and feral. It cut through Jess's dark reverie, startling her, the shadows recoiling ever so slightly. The howl echoed louder, a beastly sound that seemed hungry for the darkness itself. Emma paused, fear settling in anew. What was chasing Jess? What had she awakened? Before she could think, the lights flickered violently, and yet another howl erupted, closer this time. Jess froze, momentarily distracted. "Sarah, now!" Emma screamed, pushing her friend back toward the hallway. They darted past the kitchen as Jess's eyes locked on them, wild with rage. "You can't run forever!" she shrieked. But just before Emma slammed the door shut, she turned back, eyeing Jess, the girl she once knew. "We'll find a way to bring you back. I promise." The door swung shut, sealing them in darkness, but outside, a new fear was brewing. Emma pressed her back against the cool surface, breaths heaving in unison with Sarah's. "What is out there?" she whispered. "I don't know, but I think whatever it is, it's worse than Jess." They exchanged fearful glances. A heavy thud rattled the door, followed by an ominous scrape, deep and chilling. The howl grew closer still, like a predator and its prey. Entwined in a deadly game. Emma's mind raced. They needed to figure this out, not just to survive Jess, but whatever terror lurked behind their only escape. The darkness deepened, all hope receding. They slipped into the living room, both women drawn toward the creeping shadows. And then, through the murmurs of the storm, she heard a low, guttural growl that echoed their worst fears. What had Jess unleashed, and could they escape not just her, but the growing terror that pressed against the edge of their reality? Time was running out. The room felt like it was closing in around them. Emma and Sarah stood transfixed, shadows pooling at their feet like liquid darkness, swirling as if alive. The air was thick with dread, a palpable weight pressing against their chests as the growling outside morphed from a whisper into a threatening chorus. "What do we do now?" Sarah breathed, her voice trembling, eyes darting toward the heavy door that felt more like a coffin lid than a barrier against the horrors lurking just beyond. Emma's mind scrambled to find a solution. "We can't just stay here. We need an escape plan," she said, her voice steely even as an underlying quiver betrayed her fear. She refused to let Jess's transformation shatter her resolve. They were still friends deep down, weren't they? And if there was any chance Jess could break free of this nightmare. Another thud echoed through the apartment, louder this time, and a scratching sound followed a clawing that sent chills racing down their spines. "It's coming," Sarah warned, shifting closer to Emma. "I know." Emma clenched her fists, steeling herself. "But we can't let panic take over. If Jess has unleashed something, we need to face it. Together." Lights flickered again, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. The growl transformed into something more monstrous, an echo of guttural breathing, heavy and hot, crawling up their spines. "I don't like this," Sarah whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "We're going to die here." "We're not going to die. Not yet. But we need to move." Emma grabbed Sarah by the wrist, her heart pounding in her chest. "We need to find a window or a way out. We can't just wait for it to break in." Before Sarah could respond, the door shuddered violently, rattling in its frame. The shadows danced madly, shifting to reveal a flicker of movement from the hallway, a creature, larger than anything they'd ever imagined. Its outline edged with the darkness, shifting and changing as it advanced. "Out the window!" Emma shouted suddenly, her heart racing in her ears, drowning out Sarah's protests. She wasn't sure if their apartment was on the first floor or higher, but they had no choice. The beast was coming, and each second counted. They raced through the living room, shadows biting at their heels. Emma reached the window, struggling with the latch. Come on," she hissed, glancing back toward the door. The beast was there now, a hulking shape wrapped in shadow, teeth gleaming like knives in the dim light. Emma's hands shook violently, finally freeing the window just as a deafening crash sounded behind them. "Jump!" she urged Sarah, pushing her through the opening. The world outside spun chaotic, buildings loomed like giants against a stormy sky, branches clawed at the cloud cover. Emma followed, escaping into the night. As her feet hit the ground, a blinding pain shot through her leg. She fell, gasping as Sarah tugged her up. "We need to run." But as they turned to flee, the growling intensified, rising in anger and hunger. The creature was close, closing ground with every heartbeat. Emma could almost sense its hot, putrid breath, mingling with the floral scent of a nearby tree. "What is that thing?" Sarah shouted, panic lacing her words. "I don't know. But we can't look back." Emma pushed them forward, adrenaline flooding her body as they sprinted into the night. Suddenly, the earth beneath them trembled. They stumbled and fell, the sidewalk trembling as shadows stretched and contracted around them, merging into a singular entity. It was as if the night was alive, suffocating, swallowing their cries for escape. "Emma! What do we do?" Sarah screamed as they scrambled to their feet, drenched in fear. But Emma was frozen, her heart racing. For she could see it now, an insidious glow pulsing from Jess's direction, illuminating the chaos around them. "Jess!" Emma shouted, her voice hoarse. "We need you." But as the shadows loomed closer, she realized it wasn't just Jess they needed, it was their will to fight against whatever darkness had been unleashed, with the howls echoing through the air, pounding against her heart. Emma gathered her strength, ready to make a stand. They had to confront the darkness, not just run from it. "Stay close," she whispered to Sarah, determination lighting her eyes. "We'll face this together." As they braced themselves for battle, the piercing howl returned, a sound so chilling it could freeze blood, and then, out of the shadows, between the chaos and the terror, came a figure. "Help me!" it cried, voice cracking with desperation. Emma's heart lurched. Who could it be? What had they unleashed, and could they still turn back? They had no choice but to confront the unspeakable. Emma squinted into the darkness, the figure before them blurry and indistinct. "Who are you?" she shouted, her voice trembling but strong. The growling around them persisted, angry and relentless, a wicked symphony to match the horror unfolding. The figure stepped closer, revealing a gaunt young man. His eyes were wild, alive with fear, but they held a glimmer of familiarity that sent ice coursing through Emma's veins. "It's me, Mark," he gasped, falling to one knee as if the weight of terror had finally crushed him. "I'm trapped, you have to help me." "Mark?" Sarah's voice was a whisper, barely audible above the howling shadows. "What happened to you?" "Jess, she did something. She brought it here." He looked around wildly, as if the shadows themselves would pounce on him at any moment. "We have to get out of here. It's coming for all of us." Emma felt her heart race. The name Jess echoed in her mind like a drumbeat, reminding her of what they had lost. "We can't leave you," she said, but the moment she spoke, a deep rumble vibrated through the ground beneath them. "No, you don't understand." Mark's voice was edged with panic. "If we don't get away now, it will find us. It's already here." He pointed toward the hallway, and Emma turned to see a larger shape forming, shadows wisping and curling around it like smoke. The gut-wrenching growl rose with the figure, a nightmarish form. Emma's instincts kicked in. "We need to move. Now." Sarah grabbed Mark's arm, pulling him back toward the street, but it was too late. The creature lunged from the darkness, tearing through the air like a hurricane. Emma screamed as Sarah fell, Mark slipping from her grip. "Run!" Emma yelled, but how could they escape something that felt like a nightmare-given form? Just then, the window behind them exploded inward, shards of glass scattering like malevolent stars. A beast, half lurking in shadow and half blazing with a dreadful light, forced its way into the living room like a furious cyclone. Emma felt her breath hitch. It was larger than Mark, more grotesque than she had imagined while trapped in that dark apartment. She turned and pulled Sarah close. "We have to get out of the street." They raced into an alley, the growling shadow following, a relentless predator. As Emma dashed forward, an inexplicable fear clawed at her guts. Would they ever really escape this? They stumbled upon a door at the far end, a heavy steel door barely visible through the gloom. "Emma, it's locked," Sarah cried, shaking the handle desperately. "Keep trying," Emma urged, shouting over the violent growl echoing behind them. She felt the darkness closing in, a cold surge snaking down her spine. But before they could react, the beast collided with the wall beside them, rattling the very foundation of the building. Dust rained down, the shadows quivering in static anticipation. Emma's pulse thundered, and instinctively she pushed Sarah against the door. "Don't give up." Finally, the door creaked open just as the creature lunged again. They rushed inside, slamming it shut, but the flickering light revealed remnants of a past far more sinister. The walls were plastered with old photographs, faces twisted in anguish, agony frozen in time. "Emma, what is this place?" Sarah whispered, eyes wide with horror. "I don't know, but it feels like we've walked into a trap," Emma said, breathing heavily. The growls outside faded into frustrated roars as the creature sensed their presence hiding within. Then, a soft scuffling sound filled the silence, echoing from deeper inside the room. Emma's heart raced. "We're not alone," she muttered, dread pooling in her chest. They slowly turned, and the shadows danced around an old wooden table where figures were huddled, faces familiar, eyes glistening with the terror of their own entrapment. "Join us," a voice whispered sweetly, calling to them from the darkness. Emma felt a chill as dread seared her bones. What's happening? Sarah's voice trembled as they took a step back. Are we too late? Emma muttered, trapped between hope and despair as the memories of their past swirled in the haunting atmosphere. And outside, the growls turned to laughter, mocking them, taunting them with the realization that the darkness was more than just a creature. It was a living nightmare, and perhaps, they were all part of it. Emma. Sarah gasped, pulling her to the other end of the room. What if we can't leave? What if we're meant to stay here forever? As they faced the figures at the table, Emma saw the truth reflected in their eyes. They weren't just trapped here, they were somehow bound by it, just like in that moment. A startling realization dawned on Emma. We need to break the cycle, she breathed, feeling a surge of courage. We can't let it win. But deep down, an unsettling question gnawed at her mind. What if breaking the cycle meant making an unimaginable sacrifice? Little did they know, the shadowed figures were waiting for just that moment to reveal their darkest secrets. Emma's heart pounded like a war drum as she stared into the haunting faces that surrounded them. The flickering light revealed fear etched into the skin of those once vibrant with life, now reduced to mere echoes of who they used to be. She clenched Sarah's arm, feeling the electric pulse of their shared terror bubble between them. Emma, they look so lost, Sarah whispered, her voice trembling as a figure moved closer. It was Mark, his eyes wild with a fear that mirrored their own. Emma, you don't understand. This place holds the key. We need to remember. Remember what? Emma's voice quivered as she felt the weight of the words. She looked around, eyes tracing past the faces, searching for clarity amid the darkness. We can't stay here, Mark. We need to escape. The figures shuddered at their desperate words, and Mark took a step forward, voice cracking. You can't escape what you've already become part of. Look closely, Emma. We are all bound to Jess's darkness. We are her shadows and her past. She awoke something dark within us, and until we uncover the truth, we're trapped. Emma felt the walls closing in, shadows creeping closer, intoxicatingly dark. Anxiety coiled around her as memories of laughter and shared stories collided with the horrors they were now facing, all born from that wretched apartment. No. We can't let this happen. We need to fight this together. She declared, expressing both her determination and her fear. Together, Mark echoed, glancing at Sarah. But to fight, we have to face our fears. Each of us must confront what Jess unleashed in us. He looked deeply into Emma's eyes. You must lead us. Emma hesitated, terror twisting in her gut. What if I can't? She whispered, a lump forming in her throat. Emma, you're stronger than you know. We can't allow this darkness to consume us, Sarah insisted, grounding Emma with fierce trust. In that moment, Emma felt an unprecedented spark of hope flicker to life. They were not alone any longer. All right, she nodded, her voice steadying. But we need to channel the light we still have. Suddenly, the growls outside echoed like thunder, shaking the room to its core. Now! Emma shouted, pulling Mark and Sarah close. Everyone focus on the light inside. Think of the happiest moments. The times that made us feel alive. As they joined hands, Emma drew a deep breath. Images flooded her mind beneath the canopy of stars, the taste of victory, and the warmth of friendship. Sarah and Mark connected their thoughts, too. They summoned the laughter they shared, the joy intermingled with sorrow, feeding the burgeoning light within them. The shadows in the room quaked, agitated by their combined resolve, and Emma's heart surged. We won't let you take us. We choose to break free. As they shouted, the power of their memories wrapped around them, a bright shield casting aside the consuming darkness. With newfound strength, they faced the figures at the table, feeling their energies blending with their light. You are not alone. Emma cried. You can break free with us. The shadows hesitated, eyes darting. Whispers echoed that turned from threats to desperate calls for help. Flickers of light reached out, desperately grasping for peace amid their suffering. Together. We are your light. Sarah shouted as the shadowed faces twisted in turmoil, flickering with uncertainty. Join us. Mark urged, the shadows shifting against the will of the light. Find your strength and rise. With one collective roar, the figures surged forward, intertwining their light with theirs, a cascade of energy crashing like the waves. The darkness screamed, twisting and writhing as the shadows contorted violently, and Emma felt the warmth of hope encase her heart, but Jess's guttural voice emerged from the chaos, louder than the roar of the storm. You think your light can defeat me? This is my night. I am the darkness. Emma braced herself against the darkness thrumming beside her. No, Jess. We're here to bring you back. Fight it. The shadows darkened, thrashing against their light at the edges, seeking to pull them into the abyss. And then, Emma felt an echo of familiarity from those shadows, a whisper, a trace of Jess's real self buried deep within the swirling void. Jess. Fight. Emma yelled again, desperation threading through her voice. We love you. You don't have to be this. We're with you. The roar from outside intensified, but in that moment, a glimmer of light flared. The room illuminated with colors unseen, breaking through the darkness. It was Jess, caught between the haunting past and the flickering future, grappling with her shadowy self. Tears rolled down Emma's cheeks as she saw Jess's true vulnerability emerge. You're stronger than this darkness. You must remember us. Emma shouted, Jess's laughter faltered, the shadows gripping her loosening slightly. Let me go, she gasped, the flicker of her true self reaching out to Emma. Join us, Jess. You don't have to bear this alone. Emma cried, pulling harder on the light, the memories fueling their fight against the crushing weight. For a moment, Jess hesitated, the shadows around her rippling. As if a dawning realization broke through, she gasped, clutching her chest. I don't want to be this. The shadows screamed. Make it stop. Push it away. Emma urged, holding on to Sarah and Mark. Remember the joy, the laughter. With one final push of light, they surrounded Jess, each heartbeat representing their connection, their shared hopes pulling her from the depths. Break free. Sarah shouted. The shadows recoiled, the monstrous beasts scattered, howling as they faded into mist like evening fog under the sun, consuming darkness swallowed by the hope of friendship rekindled. In that moment, the room transformed as the screams faded, the faces around them freeing themselves, eyes glowing bright as they emerged from the darkness. At last, Jess stood amid them, her expression softening, her true self breaking free from the binding night. I was so scared. Tears filled her eyes as she embraced Emma tightly, as if hoping to melt into safety. I know, Emma whispered, a weight lifting from her heart. But we're here, Jess. You're safe now. The storm outside calmed, the wind softening as new light broke through the clouds. The shadows that haunted them slipped away, leaving behind only shimmering memories. As they stood together, each anchored by a bond thicker than fear, a sense of peace washed over them, filling the air with energy and hope. Somewhere deep in the distance, Emma felt a flicker of gratitude. Together, they defaced nightmares and emerged as one, a family formed in the fires of adversity. But just as they exhaled relief, knowing they had triumphed over darkness, Emma whispered softly, let us never forget this. Let us promise to keep our light shining, no matter how dark the world gets. As if answering her vow, the sun broke through the clouds, spilling golden rays over their exhausted forms, each of them lit anew by the connection they had forged against the shadows. Together they turned away from the remnants of their dark night, stepping forward into the embrace of a brand new day filled with hope, shared laughter, and the unknown adventures that awaited them. But one thing was clear together, they could conquer anything. Now, before you scroll away, listen closely. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm and keep us going. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. What did you think? You gotta share your thoughts. If you haven't shared this video with at least 5 friends, don't wait even one more second. You have the chance to bring others into our amazing community. Your support means everything.